Here I am on the Roman road not far from where I live, and more often than not I ride motorbikes along this sometimes, but I've also walked it a lot. And today I'm going to talk about a couple of small forest areas not far from the village. But first of all, I thought we'd take a look at this old tree, and it always strikes me it probably hasn't got long left to live. But up there, doesn't that just look like a prehistoric emu, or perhaps a peacock? That branch there with the ivy on it. Maybe it's just me, but I thought I'd take a look at it. I've got loads of photographs of it, but perhaps this tree won't be here for much longer. And that brings me to the subject that I'm going to be talking about today in my video. Usually I discuss motorbikes in the main, but today I was going to take a look at two plots of woodland either side of the road between Forestry and Unmanaged, and on the left hand side is a woodland that's been maintained from time to time, and on the right is one that hasn't been. And the differences between the two, considering the ages of the trees, are probably pretty similar. It's quite remarkable. So it's going to be a couple of miles walk from here, so head over there and we'll have a little look and discuss what we can see. Right, well, this isn't my usual sort of video where normally I'm discussing and or riding motorbikes, but this is just outside of the village where I live, and I thought I was going to take a look at this. And with all the environmental stuff going on at the moment, and CO2 emissions and forests being hacked down, deforestation, and save the planet and plant more trees and so on, I thought that we'd take a look at this, because this is quite an interesting and rare example of a woodland that, as far as I know, has never had any maintenance work done on it in its lifetime. I'm going to walk up the road a bit further, where this little sort of ravine, if you like, becomes steeper on both sides, and also on the other side of the road you'll see a woodland that has been maintained and thinned from time to time, and just sort of discuss some of the differences, because believe it or not, many years ago I spent 10 years working in the forestry, working for contractors, and even as a contractor for a little while, so I know a little bit about what I'm talking about here. But I'm not going to be political. I'm not even going to really give an opinion, but just some observations. So the next thing I'm going to do is walk up the road a little, and we'll pick up the filming from there. Here we are looking at that woods again, and there's the road I just walked up a few hundred yards. And if you take a look there, I'll zoom in, you can see there's a stream down at the bottom there. You can hear it even if you can't see it. It is there. The sides of the banks are quite steep on both sides, very steep, too steep for a tractor to drive, just about too steep to even walk really. But if we look down there, look at all those fallen, dead and dying trees, and there's trees leaning over ready to fall. Some trees are standing and doing quite well, others are dead on their feet. That's a proper, left to its own devices, little wood or plantation. Probably a wood rather than a plantation. I don't really think that it would have been planted as such. It may have been, but it certainly hasn't been subject to any maintenance work over the years that I know of, and I've lived in this area for 40 odd years. Now if we take a look across the road at the other woodland, there's an immediate and obvious difference in that pretty much all the trees that we can see there are standing and alive, with the odd exception, of course. You're always going to get the odd exception. But I even remember contractors working in here and thinning and tidying up. They thinned out the trees, cut down smaller ones and the more sickly ones, and made more space for the healthier standing ones to continue growing. And everywhere you look there, they're all standing nice and healthy. Admittedly not green because we're in winter now, so the leaves have gone, but they're all doing okay. Meanwhile, Mother Nature's looking after these, and a lot of them are doing quite well too. But my observation would be there's a lot of trees down there that have fallen and dead. Now they're not producing oxygen or consuming CO2. They will in many years rot into the ground and provide food for the ones that remain. But this woodland has been untouched by human hand, and I suppose you could say it's not looking too great for it. Look at all these trees fallen across the gully there where the stream runs. There's just loads of them, any amount of them. And access to this woodland is pretty poor. It would be very difficult and very challenging to try and harvest any timber from this woodland, and it certainly probably wouldn't be profitable, so I don't really blame anyone for leaving it this way. But I just thought, I've been thinking I'd like to do this, film it and discuss it a little, because especially in this day and age with all the screaming about saving the planet, and believe me, I don't want to see the planet die, but people go on about cutting trees down, and sometimes people even get up in arms about it. But the alternative, if you don't do it, is this. And what a lot of people don't seem to realise is a lot of plantations, especially conifer plantations in Forestry Commission plots, were actually planted as a crop in the first place, where there wouldn't have been any trees, certainly in that sort of density or volume before. And all this needs to be taken into consideration should anyone want to argue about deforestation and destroying the planet and wiping out the Earth's oxygen supplies and so on. If you leave it alone, this is what you get, and hopefully you might see that one up there. I'm looking at a tree that's actually still standing but died and snapped, and that's quite a large tree, that. So if you leave them alone, they're not going to do any better or be any more productive on the oxygen front. We need trees, yes, of course we do, and the more the merrier. But the plantations and the crops need to be maintained and thinned from time to time and controlled and managed. And I think some people lose sight of that sometimes. There we are, we'll just have a look again across the road. And we've got one or two that are actually leaning in there. But the vast majority of them are standing and healthy, and come the spring they'll green up again and grow some more. As will a lot of these on this side. But also, I think we'll find a lot more of them will probably die and fall, or fall and die, because that's what happens when they're left to their own devices. So this isn't an argument for or against anything, and I'm not shouting about or denying climate change or anything like that. This is purely an observation from the point of view of the trees and the plantations and what happens to them when they're managed and when they're not managed. And I think the difference is pretty stark and speaks for itself. Just one final footnote to this little clip, and this isn't very nice at all, it's very sad. Down there in that stream, I know that that stuff has been down there for more than 20 years. Fly tipping is nothing new, it's pretty disgusting, and there's no excuse for it. And that stuff down there would be an absolute nightmare to get out, Like I say, it's been down there for more than 20 years that I know of. In fact, I seem to remember even when I was a school kid seeing stuff down there. There's no need for that. It just spoils everything. It's dirty. Don't do it. That's no way to save the planet, whoever you are.